The three faces of the mirror. In a land forgotten by time, there was a mirror of truth hidden deep within the forest of reflections. The mirror was said to reveal the true nature of anyone who gazed upon it, showing not only their strengths but also their deepest fears and insecurities. Many had sought the mirror, but few could bear the sight of their own truth. One day, three travelers, a knight named Aelric, a sage named Selene, and a musician named Rion, each set out on their own quest for self-discovery. Though they came from different walks of life, all three sought the mirror for the same reason, to face their deepest fear and uncover the truth within themselves. The mirror's magic worked in three ways, revealing three distinct aspects of one's soul. Unbeknownst to the travelers, their paths would soon intertwine, forming a triple helix of courage, wisdom, and self-discovery. The first path led through the Cavern of Shadows, a dark and foreboding place where no light could reach. Aelric, a brave and renowned knight, had fought countless battles and won many victories. But despite his courage, he was haunted by a fear that gnawed at him, a fear of losing his honor, of being seen as weak in the eyes of others. As Aelric descended into the cavern, he encountered a figure cloaked in darkness. It mirrored his every move, and as he drew closer, he realized that the figure was none other than himself, a shadow of all his hidden fears. The shadow spoke, "You fear the loss of your honor, Aelric, but it is your fear that binds you. You fight not for yourself, but for how others see you." Aelric drew his sword, ready to strike, but the shadow laughed. "You cannot defeat me with your blade. I am part of you. Until you face your fear and accept it, you will never be free." The knight hesitated, his sword trembling in his hand. For the first time, he understood that his greatest enemy wasn't the foes he had fought on the battlefield, but the fear within himself, the fear of failure, of being seen as weak. With a deep breath, Aelric sheathed his sword and stepped forward, embracing the shadow. As he did, the darkness lifted, and the cavern filled with light. The shadow dissolved, leaving Aelric standing alone, free from the chains of his fear. He realized that true courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the willingness to face it head-on. The second path wound through the forest of whispers, a place where the trees themselves seemed to murmur doubts and questions. Selene, a wise sage, had spent her life seeking knowledge, believing that through wisdom she could understand the mysteries of the universe. But despite her vast knowledge, she was plagued by doubt that no matter how much she learned, she would never truly understand the world's deeper truths. As Selene walked through the forest, the whispers grew louder, filling her mind with questions she couldn't answer. The trees seemed to mock her, their leaves rustling with uncertainty. "Why do you seek knowledge, Selene?" the whispers asked. "You will never know all the answers. You will never understand the ultimate truth." Selene's heart sank. She had spent her life seeking knowledge, but now she wondered if her quest had been in vain. Was there any point in searching for answers if the truth was always just out of reach? Suddenly, a figure appeared before her, a reflection of herself, but older, wearier, and full of doubt. "You have sought wisdom, but what have you found?" the reflection asked. "Doubt is all that remains." Selene closed her eyes, overwhelmed by the weight of her doubt. But then she remembered something. The purpose of her journey wasn't to have all the answers, but to continue asking questions, to remain curious in the face of uncertainty. She realized that doubt was not her enemy, it was part of the path to wisdom. With newfound clarity, Selene opened her eyes and smiled at the reflection. "I may never know all the answers, but I will continue to seek them. And that is enough." As she spoke, the forest quieted, the whispers fading into the wind. Selene understood that doubt was not something to be feared, but embraced as part of the journey toward greater understanding. The third path led through the echoing canyon, where every sound was reflected back 100-fold. Rion, a gifted musician, had once been celebrated for his talent, but over time, he had become trapped by the expectations of others. He no longer played for himself, but for the approval and applause of the crowd. His art, once a source of joy, had become a burden. As Rion entered the canyon, he began to play his lute, but every note echoed back at him, louder and more distorted. The echoes overwhelmed him, drowning out the music. He tried to play louder, faster, But the cacophony only grew worse. In the midst of the chaos, a figure appeared, a reflection of Rion, surrounded by a crowd of faceless spectators. The reflection spoke, "You play not for yourself, but for the approval of others. You are trapped by their expectations, and you have forgotten why you began to play in the first place." Rion's hands trembled as he realized the truth of the reflection's words. He had lost sight of his own passion, and in doing so, he had become a prisoner to the applause of the crowd. The music that once brought him joy now felt hollow. Determined to reclaim his love for music, Rion stopped playing. He closed his eyes, tuning out the echoes and the expectations. He strummed a single note, soft and pure, and for the first time in years, he played not for others, but for himself. The echoes faded, and the canyon fell silent. Rion smiled, feeling the joy of the music return to him. He understood now that true expression came from within, not from the approval of others. At last, the three travelers reached the heart of the forest of reflections, where the mirror of truth stood, gleaming in the moonlight. As they approached, the mirror reflected not just their faces, but their journeys, the shadow of fear, the web of doubt, and the echo of expectation. Together, they gazed into the mirror, and in that moment, they understood the lesson of their intertwined paths. Aelric had learned that courage was not about defeating external enemies, but about facing his own inner fear. Selene had learned that wisdom was not about having all the answers, but about embracing doubt as part of the journey. Rion had learned that true expression was not about meeting the expectations of others, but about staying true to oneself. The mirror shimmered, and the reflections of their fears, doubts, and expectations faded. In their place stood the travelers, transformed by their journeys, each one having discovered their own truth. The mirror spoke, though it had no voice. Its message was clear: true strength lies not in the absence of fear, doubt, or expectation, but in the willingness to face them, embrace them, and rise above them. As the travelers left the forest, they carried with them the wisdom of the mirror. Though they had begun their journeys alone, their paths had been intertwined, like three strands of a single helix, each one supporting and enriching the other. Aelric, Selene, and Rion had faced their deepest fears and doubts, and in doing so, they had found not only courage and wisdom, but the freedom to be themselves, free from the shadows, the whispers, and the echoes that once held them back. And so, they returned to their lives, forever changed by the mirror of truth, knowing that the greatest battles were not fought in the world outside, but within. This story of Aelric, Selene, and Rion teaches us that true self-discovery comes not from avoiding fear, doubt, or the expectations of others, but from facing them with courage and honesty. Like the travelers, we all have our own shadows, webs, and echoes to confront. But by embracing these challenges, we can uncover the truth of who we really are and find the strength to live authentically, guided by our inner compass.